Welcome back to another episode of the Rich Carroll program. I am your host, Rich Carroll. Today I want to talk about a principle that has been in the news recently, especially concerning the Senate hearings of Judge Brett Kavanaugh and the sexual allegations leveled against him by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. And the principle I'm focusing on is something you will find in the Me Too movement. Now, obviously, the Me Too movement is a movement that has good intentions. Women should not have to live in fear of being suppressed or dismissed when they're assaulted by men who would take advantage of them. But the idea that we should, by default, always believe the accuser, believe the woman, the survivor, is a dangerous precedent to live by. And that's based upon believing an accuser if there is no evidence. Like with the case of Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh, you had a woman who came forward and made allegations, and you can conclude from her testimony that maybe she did endure something. But when you step back and look, she did not have enough hard evidence against Kavanaugh. There were holes in her story, and even the prosecutor, Rachel Mitchell, the prosecutor who questioned Ford and Kavanaugh, said that she would have not brought charges against Kavanaugh had there have been a trial. So I want to bring your attention to a story in Pennsylvania that really highlights why we don't always believe the accuser. And the story comes from PennLive.com. It says, the parents of a former Seneca Valley High School student claim in a federal lawsuit filed this week that their teenage son was terrorized by false accusations made by 5 mean girls at the school. The parents seek unspecified civil damages against the girls' parents, the school district, and Butler County District Attorney Richard Goldinger's office. The lawsuit alleges that the girls, quote, conspired in person and via electronic communication devices to falsely accuse TF, the teenage boy, of sexual assault on 2 occasions. So as you go through the story, the first allegation happened in July 2017. The teenage boy worked at a pool as a lifeguard with girl number 1 in the story. Girl number 2 charged the teenage boy with sexually assaulting her on the pool premises. And girl number 1, she corroborated the story. And so the teenage boy was subsequently fired from his job at the pool. But later on, the lawsuit alleges that girl number 2 said she made the sexual assault claim against the boy because, quote, I just don't like him. Quote, I just don't like to hear him talk. I don't like to look at him. She later told fellow students that she would do anything to get the teenage boy expelled. The teenage boy's parents eventually agreed in late 2017 to a consent decree where the boy would not admit guilt but was required to stay out of trouble for 6 months, and he had to report to county probation department. Then, number 2, this is allegation number 2, girl number 3, who is also a friend of girl number 2, reported to a school counselor that the teenage boy had walked into her home uninvited and sexually assaulted her. The allegations were supported by girls number 4 and 5. So here you have 5 girls all in on these 2 sexual assault allegations. The teenage boy was charged with indecent assault, criminal trespass, and simple assault. He was removed from class on April 10th of this year, placed in leg and wrist shackles. He had to spend 9 days in a juvenile detention center before being released on home electronic monitoring. Then, after 28 days, the teenage boy was only allowed out of his home to mow his lawn. He couldn't even play on the school baseball team because the school said every time he was wearing the jersey, he would be representing the school. But then, this May, 3 of the witnesses admitted they lied. Later on, the other allegations were dismissed. Here's the crazy thing about it. You have these false allegations that have been made against this guy. And then the lawsuit that they're filing claims the school officials have repeatedly refused to mark the academic records of the girls who lied about the assaults. So the girls aren't going to get punished. Even though they ruined this teenage boy's life, they're not going to get punished. So there you have it. You have a teenage boy's life has been turned upside down by two separate allegations because a group of girls did not like him and decided they were going to bring false allegations against him. And this is why, this is case in point on why it's so important that we don't simply believe the accuser. There has to be some sort of evidence. There has to be at least a cohesive story to go off of. And even then, as this story I just told you about points out, a solid story could still be covering up the truth. And I know you've probably heard this a lot over the past couple weeks, but put your brother, put your son, put your father in that situation. There has to be a serious standard on how we decide whether these things have happened or not. We have to consider both sides. Otherwise, we could end up punishing innocent people. Now, I'll be the first to admit, we are not a perfect nation. We are human and we make mistakes. And unfortunately, there are going to be real women and real situations that are swept under the rug. But we should strive every day to handle these situations better. We should encourage women to not be afraid, to come forward when incidents happen, and they should be heard, and they should be taken seriously. And I say that having a daughter of my own. If she came to my wife and I with a situation, I would want her to be taken seriously. But we have to tread carefully so we don't end up victimizing innocent people. And I know this can be a tough subject to discuss, and I just thank you all for sticking with me through it. I just ask you, next time you hear allegations come up against somebody and it's not a clear-cut case with evidence, just remember this story right here, how false allegations destroyed a teenage boy's life. I'm Rich Carroll. Thanks for tuning in again. God bless.